Home to the world's fourth largest reserves of natural gas, Turkmenistan is looking to tap new partners. Meanwhile, European countries who have long been dependent on Russian gas are looking for alternative sources as well. And Türkiye sits in the middle of it all, and a deal signed last week could help bridge that energy gap. The long-proposed Trans-Caspian gas pipeline project is set to begin. Last week, Ankara and Ashgabat agreed to cooperate on the export of natural gas through Türkiye to global markets. Landlocked Turkmenistan is hoping to diversify its markets as China currently accounts for 75% of its gas exports. The EU, which has sanctioned Russian energy due to the war in Ukraine, has sought new sources of energy from Azerbaijan to Qatar. If the Trans-Caspian gas pipeline project is completed, gas from Turkmenistan will crisscross through the Caspian Sea, the South Caucasus and through Türkiye before finally reaching Europe. And to further discuss Turkey's gas deal with Turkmenistan, joining me now from Monterey, California, is Brenda Sheffer. She is an energy analyst at the Naval Postgraduate School. And from Moscow, Sergei Kapitonov. He's a gas analyst at Skoltech. A warm welcome to you both, and thanks for joining me on Straight Talk. So, Brenda, talk to us about the importance of this deal with Türkiye from Turkmenistan points of view. I mean, what kind of benefits will this deal give to Ashgabat in terms of reducing its reliance on China as its dominant customer?
Yes, well, I think this agreement is an important milestone. Well, on one hand, it's a memorandum of understanding, so it's actually an agreement to set an agreement. It's not a legally binding contract. But at the same time, in the recent years, Ashgabat hasn't signed these kind of MOUs very, very frequently, and especially the fact that it was signed in Türkiye. I think that this does show a very significant step from Ashgabat to try to export significant volumes westward to and through Türkiye. So it's a big step, but other big steps have to be taken for this to be realized.
Could you elaborate on that? What kind of steps you're talking about?
Right. So, I mean, first thing, like I said, this is not a binding contract. This is a memorandum of understanding. And the way it works in most of the gas industry, you're going to need, gas buyers, binding contracts for the gas. And in recent years, we've had a lot of sort of challenges with gas buyers in Europe because there's sort of this presumption. There's this sort of paradox in European policy and energy security. On the one hand, they need a lot more natural gas. When they don't have enough natural gas, they use coal and fuel oil. On the other hand, they don't want to admit that they need natural gas because they like to keep the illusion that somehow renewables are going to just show up and replace all their needs for natural gas and for baseload fuels for electricity. So they prefer they want to get the gas, but they don't want to take steps to facilitate it. So for instance, long-term contracts, public finance for natural gas. There's still a need for these things, and we see this. Whether it's with Azerbaijani gas, Eastern Mediterranean gas. Anytime. So far Europeans have been very hesitant for pipeline gas to conclude long-term agreements in recent years. A little different with LNGs, where gas buyers have concluded long-term agreement.
So, Sergey, another detail, maybe a big detail, for Turkmen gas to reach Türkiye, it will have to pass through the Caspian Sea. And for that to happen, Baku and Ashgabat will need to agree on a maritime border agreement. So, where do you think both countries stand at the moment? I mean, can it be resolved easily?
Well, I do think that a Trans-Caspian corridor is one of the options. Ashgabat can sell gas westward. Another option is to sell gas through Iran using a kind of a swap deal. For example, Turkmenistan can sell gas to the northern Iran, and they do. And in northern Iran, they do have deficit of gas, for example, in winter. And in exchange, Iran can sell its gas from its southern gas fields to Türkiye. Thus realizing the important role of Turkey as an important gas hub of different gas supplies to Europe. Speaking about the Caspian route, after the deal of the maritime status of the Caspian Sea was signed, I don't think that Ashgabat needs signatures of all the Caspian states to build a pipeline through the Caspian Sea. But what is important, Ashgabat needs money needs investment to realize this big infrastructural project. And from my point of view, it is the most important thing and the most important problem to be solved on the way of Turkmen's gas to Europe.
So it seems, Brenda, the easiest option will be transferring the Turkmen gas through the existing Iranian pipeline. But what do we know about Iran's position here? I mean, will it allow Türkiye to import gas through its pipelines?
I actually think it's it's probably for any significant volumes that will actually go through the Southern Gas Corridor. And I think that actually the establishment of the Southern Gas Corridor was a big factor in the shift in Turkmenistan's policy towards exporting gas westward. Because as long as the Southern Gas Corridor was just sort of a theory, an idea, why should Turkmenistan take the risk, with Russia's wrath, about gas supplies going westward? But the minute the Southern Gas Corridor became a fact, and we see, big shift in Turkmenistan's activity, trying to bring to gas westward. So I think you might have small volumes, probably initially continuing to go through Iran. But Turkmenistan has, they've had a lot of disagreements with Iran on price, on payment. So I would not imagine that significant volumes will go through Iran. And in general, there's problems. Iran isn't a reliable supplier to Turkey to gas. Our colleague pointed out, when there's gas shortages in Iran itself, especially in winters, Iran tends to disrupt its exports. So I think it'll probably be more likely, if there are significant volumes, that it will go through the Southern Gas Corridor infrastructure.
Maybe Türkiye can help build its infrastructure. So, Sergey, how would that deal, if materialized, impact Ankara's imports from Russia? And is it poised to create some disagreements between Turkmenistan, Türkiye, and Russia?
From my point of view, I don't think that Russia is a side in this triangle. So I perceive this deal as exclusively Turkmen-Türkiye's deal. How it may affect Russia and business with Russia? Probably Turkmenistan will reduce its volumes it's currently selling to Gazprom to Russia, thus saving these volumes to sell to Türkiye, to the Turkish gas hub. But speaking about the gas swaps between Russia and Turkmenistan, I think that at the moment this kind of business can materialize. Russia is moving to Central Asia, and it's moving more actively than before several years. Russia is investing in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan and has long-term contracts with these countries, but something different. Turkmenistan has fourth largest gas reserves, and it has to market these gas reserves.
So Brenda, sorry to interrupt, but I want to ask this to Brenda. How would this deal help Russia to sell more gas to China?
Right. So I think there's been a really significant change in the geopolitics of gas in Central Asia in the last 3 years, especially since the Russian invasion of Ukraine and the European actions that minimized the amount of Russian gas coming into Europe. So Russia used to try to maintain its dominance in the European gas market. It was a really strategic geopolitical and commercial goal. With the loss of most of its market share in Europe, Russia has pivoted its export towards China. And this actually shifts everything. It's like throwing the cards up in the air. Suddenly it would be happier for Turkmenistan not to be exporting so many volumes to the Chinese market. That could create a much better price environment for it. And if instead Turkmenistan is exporting to the European market, where Russia has already lost its dominance, this is not something that Russia is likely to block like in the past. So the things have really changed. And I think also Turkmenistan has concerns. We always talk about security of supply, but for producers, for exporters, you have to have security of demand. And with Russia coming in with massive volumes into China, I think Turkmenistan has some concerns about security of demand from China, and therefore diversifying, get some gas into Europe, westward into Turkiye, get some gas into Iran, different swaps. Obviously, this is a much better strategy for Turkmenistan. Everyone needs diversification,
Yes.
both of fuel sources and of the types of fuel.
So, Sergey, how will that deal add to the importance of the middle corridor, which Turkey is a part of, and make both Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines, let's say, more irrelevant?
Well, I do think that in current circumstances, Russia hasn't put any stakes on the northern corridor, on these infamous Nord Stream 1 and Nord Stream 2 pipelines. And on the opposite, Russia also looks into this middle corridor through Turkey to Europe. And from my point of view, Russia will exploit the most of the opportunities the potential Turkish gas hub offers.
Mm-hmm. So in 2022, the European Union and Azerbaijan agreed on a landmark deal to double the volume of Azeri gas coming into the European markets by 2027. So will this deal with Turkey make that target more realistic?
I think it's realistic regardless, with or without the Turkmen gas. I think Azerbaijan is working in earnest to get those supplies into Europe. I think there's a lot of disinformation campaigns about, Azerbaijan doesn't have enough gas or can't do it, and I think actually they will be able to make this commitment. But again, let's remember also with Europe that was a MOU, that was a memorandum of understanding, and European gas buyers have to step up in order to facilitate these agreements. The same with Turkmen gas, and also Europe needs to think about public finance. If you want these major projects, strategic projects, to come into Europe, it would be good for European financial institutions, to be providing finance for it. But of course, Turkmen gas creates a lot more flexibility. Different ideas of swaps and different ideas that can of course make it better for everyone.
Yes. So, Sergey, what do you think? Will this deal help Europe to meet its energy needs, given its push to end its dependence on Russia?
Well, this deal will definitely contribute to the security of supply to Europe on the modern stage of the development of European gas markets with no Russian gas in European basket, or few molecules of Russian gas in the European basket. So, well, I do think that Europe will welcome any routes and any new routes of pipeline gas, for example, from Azerbaijan and from Turkmenistan. But the route from Turkmenistan, from my point of view, has a problem of huge investments needed to build this Trans-Caspian corridor, Trans-Caspian pipeline. Is Europe willing to invest into this huge infrastructural project? Then we'll see Turkmen gas in Europe. Now, I would say in the medium term, in the next 5 years.
So speaking of investments, Brenda, I mean, it seems that building a Trans-Caspian pipeline, which would link Turkmenistan to Azerbaijan, could cost up to $20 billion. Is this a feasible route?
Also with gas from Turkmenistan to Azerbaijan, there's a variety of options. So you could go shore to shore, a full Trans-Caspian pipeline. But also there's been interest in what's called an intra-Caspian pipeline, linking fields within the Caspian, and that would be a lot more modest beginning. I wouldn't be surprised if actually the export starts that way, which is more modest geopolitically, more modest in terms of investments, versus a full shore to shore pipeline.
Yes. All right, Brenda and Sergey, unfortunately we'll have to leave it here. Thank you very much for joining me on Straight Talk.